It's 1519. Hernán Cortés arrives in Tlaxcala and finds something he didn't expect. There's no throne, no emperor to receive him. Instead, he finds a council of rulers making collective decisions. It's like Venice, Genoa, or Pisa, because there's no supreme ruler, the conquistadors say in amazement. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, nomadic tribes in the Arabian desert have been practicing something similar for centuries. And in the Great Plains of North America, Iroquois women can veto men's decisions. There are more examples. Democracy isn't what we've been told. It's older and has more forms than ours. Democracy didn't start in Athens. Athens and modern democracy are just variations or flavors of democracy. Based on David Stasavage's book, The Decline and Rise of Democracy, I'm going to show you that democracy is much older and more universal than you think. And more importantly, I'm going to explain the 3 specific factors that make democracy live or die. Modern democracy lets us choose our leaders, who will make decisions for our community in the coming years. But is that all that makes a democracy? Democracy, for the ancient Greeks, meant government of the people, and their democracy was a bit different from ours. For example, women, slaves, and foreigners couldn't vote. If we understand democracy broadly as government of the people, we can see there are precedents for this form of government, and that Greek democracy isn't a diamond in the mud of history. Author David Stasavage tells us that this precedent would be early democracy, which is a more primitive form of democracy, where the king or political chief governs with a council or assembly independent of him. Early democracy has emerged at different times and places, independent of each other. For example, in Mesopotamia or ancient India, people in these places couldn't read Aristotle. The philosopher hadn't even been born yet. Simply put, a leader, whether king, tribal chief, or cacique, but who can't govern alone? He needs consensus from an independent council or assembly. When a Huron chief wanted to declare war, he couldn't just order it. First, the clan matrons, the elder women, discussed the matter. If they said no, there was no war, period. The chief could argue, persuade, but not impose. There are other examples, such as Mesopotamia, pre-Islamic Arabia, Central Africa, or medieval Europe. In all these places, an early democracy existed. In some places, autocrats were more dominant than councils or assemblies. In other parts, the opposite was true, but they all share the same pattern. Power is not centralized in an absolute way. Power is more like a network. This happened in dozens of places, at completely different times, without copying each other. I don't know if you realize it, but there are certain patterns here. David Stasavage identifies 3 crucial factors, and it's not abstract theory. You can see them working throughout history. In a group of 50 to 500 people, everyone knows each other. Decisions affect people with names and faces. You can reach consensus because you have time to listen to each person. In Athenian assemblies before classical democracy, when the city was smaller, citizens sat in a circle. Everyone could speak. Decisions were made until general agreement was reached. When Athens grew to 40,000 citizens, this became impossible. You can't listen to 40,000 opinions on every topic. How many taxes can you collect without provoking a rebellion? In the past, this was impossible to calculate. There were no statistics, reliable censuses, or ways to measure real production. Rulers shared power in exchange for information. I give you a voice in decisions, you tell me how much you're actually producing. Tlaxcalan rulers couldn't measure exactly how much corn each plot produced. That's why representatives from each neighborhood participated in decisions about tributes. They knew the reality on the ground. If I don't like how you govern me, I leave. And if many people leave, your kingdom collapses. Bedouin tribes, Mongols, steppe peoples, all practiced forms of early democracy. Why? Because they were nomadic. If the leader abused power, people literally packed their tents and left for another tribe. In the medieval Alps, communities could migrate from one valley to another. Feudal lords knew this, so they constantly negotiated with peasant assemblies. The same three factors, but in reverse. If you have 50 to 500 citizens, consensus is possible. When a city reaches 5,000 or 50,000 citizens, how can you please everyone? In early Athenian democracy, discussion in assemblies was possible. When it grew, their democracy changed to what we know. By 1000 AD, China had developed the world's most sophisticated bureaucracy. Imperial exams, detailed censuses, precise maps. Emperors knew exactly how much each province produced. They no longer needed consensus. They had data. The professionalization of information extraction and prediction for tax planning allowed dispensing with people's participation. The consequence is clear. Bureaucracy creates the possibility of autocracy. The ruler can rely on an army of bureaucrats to carry out his vision. He no longer needs to share power. Democracy weakens. When Muslims conquered lands with large peasant populations, they found these people had more difficulty leaving. You can't just take your land and go to another country. This gave way to installing an autocracy based on the Sassanid governance system. This happened either for natural reasons or through land registration systems or conscription. Here's what's important for us. Democracy is something that emerges in human societies under the right conditions, and also disappears when those conditions disappear. That's why we have three problems. With 50 million voters, direct democracy is impossible. But we've gone too far toward representation. Most people feel completely disconnected from decisions that affect them. They see rulers as a group with excessive privileges, with different rights, another justice system, privileges to extract valuable information, etc. What can we do to reduce elite privileges? Algorithms, big data, and digital surveillance give rulers a level of information that Chinese emperors never dreamed of. They no longer need our consensus to know what's happening in society. How do we maintain citizen power when governments can predict and control so much? Modern states control borders, jobs, pensions, health services. Leaving the country is practically impossible for most people. Moreover, today, there's clearly growing xenophobia and nationalist agendas in every country. It's increasingly easy for autocrats to confine us to a small space and squeeze every atom out of us. How do we create an exit for ourselves? Democracy has emerged independently in many cultures throughout history. It's part of human nature. But it has also disappeared many times for the same reasons. We know what kills democracy: societies too large without real participation, governments with too much information, and citizens without exit power. The bad news: we're seeing exactly these three factors in action today. The question isn't whether democracy will survive. It has survived thousands of years. The question is, what form will it take? What we must be clear about is that representative democracy is just one form of democracy. There are infinite forms it can take in the future. What do you think? Have you seen examples of early democracy in your community? Do you think technology can restore direct participation? Leave me your opinion in the comments. And if you like this type of content, subscribe, because we'll keep dismantling historical myths that change how we see the present.
Oh my God! Socrates just invented democracy is incredible! People will talk about for centuries. The Greeks did it again!